The Paula Show is on. The Paula Show. Come on, one and all. I extend an invitation to the Paula Show. Join in the conversation. Transforming behavior, recognizing our savior, overcoming hurdles, achieving dreams. Together we can succeed.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Paula Show. Tonight, it's all about the Cubans. On 6th April 2019, we will be celebrating with the Cubans. It's 25 years of diplomatic relations between the two nations. Clap for Antigua and Barbuda and Cuba. And this started in 1994 with Sir Lester Bird and the late president of Cuba, Mr. Fidel Castro. And the relationships have continued. And tonight on the Paula Show, we're presenting our ambassador from Cuba, Maria Esther Fife Cabreja. Got it. And we have Cuban dancers on set. We have Cuban soloists on set. It's going to be an awesome night on the Paula Show, and I'll be dancing later. You won't want to miss that. So stay with us on the Paula Show. We'll be right back after this commercial break. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. Remember to watch the Paula Show via CTV Channel 2 on Tuesday nights at 9, and Sundays there's a rebroadcast at 1 in the afternoon. Tonight it's all about the Cuban relationship with Antigua and Barbuda. Thank you for accepting our invitation to the Paula Show.
Thank you for the invitation.
You're welcome. Very often we hear of Havana and Santiago and Santa Clara in Cuba. And you said you're from the eastern end of Cuba. Whereabout is that?
Yes, I was born in the eastern of Cuba, in Baracoa.
Baracoa?
One of the most famous cities of Cuba, and it was the first founded by the Spaniards when they entered, well, several centuries ago.
Yes.
In Cuba. It is said normally that Cuba was discovered, but we consider it was the encounter of the two cultures, because when they went to Cuba, the inhabitants has already a very strong culture. Yes. But I'm from that part. I'm very proud of that, and precisely today there are other representatives of this area in this program.
In the audience
yes.
as well?
Yes.
Let me see all the people from Eastern Cuba. Show your hand.
The Eastern, many
almost
of them.
everybody
Yes.
is from Eastern Cuba.
Yes, and by the way, you have the landscape is very similar to that city.
Oh.
Yes, cocoa trees, and that's very similar to the eastern part of Cuba.
So it's like a tropical area.
Just because that part is more similar to the Caribbean region.
Okay.
Like Santiago de Cuba and Baracoa. Havana is a little bit different, but
yes,
these cities are more similar. The landscape is more similar to the Caribbean region.
Okay. Sometimes when we hear about Cuba, we hear about limited resources, but it seems as if in Cuba, education is a bridge to a better life.
Yes, of course, we have limited resources, but we can speak about financial resources because we have a lot of human resources. And you're right, education is free at all levels, like healthcare, and because
college as well, university?
Even the university, yes. The only thing we ask the students is to study. If you study, you can do what you prefer, what you want, but everything depends on you, because the state put the resources in your hands, and you have to study every day. If you are interested in different specialty, you have to study a lot.
It's a pity I wasn't born in Cuba. Yeah. Because I would have studied. Somebody would have had to say, Paula, basta, enough studying. Time for you to go to work.
Yes.
Because I really do like to study.
Yes.
the value that women bring to the workplace in Cuba, because I see you and I've read of other females in Cuba, and it seems as if a large percentage of females are in the workplaces in Cuba.
Yes. In Cuba, we are really empowered. This is an objective of the United Nations. This is an objective adopted in the Beijing conference many years ago. The United Nations is working for that, but we have been working very hard to fulfill that objective. And for example, we have 53% of women in parliament, and you know that is one of the main indicators that women are precisely being recognized.
As a matter of fact, I was reading a speech by Mr. Raul Castro, and he said that achievement with 53% of your women in parliament, it's the first in the American hemisphere, and it's the fourth in the entire world.
In the world, that's
That's commendable.
Yes, ma'am.
You need to clap for Cuba.
Yes,
That's
of
good. And there are lots of female professors in your school, and I read that 59% of your scientists are females.
Even more. It's about 80% of professionals in science and in education in Cuba are women. So it means that when you go to a hospital in Cuba, you can find mainly women. If you go to different scientific institutes, you can find mainly women. So we are very proud of that, because it means when you get to incorporate women in society, it means you are doing the right job. You are recognizing the contribution of women to society.
I know in our workplaces, we bring balance. We bring our feminine skills. We bring our organization skills, because we ladies, we are more organized than the men. Right, ladies?
Yes.
By far. And so we bring a number of skills to the workplaces, and this desire to be the best that we can be and to be passionate about anything that we're doing. Lots of ladies are like that. I suppose it's the same in Cuba.
Just that the same in Cuba, but it's the same in the world. Yeah. It's up to the political will of different governments if the ladies are not empowered. But they, in all countries, have a lot of strength, the same enthusiasm, and they are fighting for their rights. So that's in Cuba. I remember one phrase that Fidel used to say.
Tell me about Fidel all night long. Me gusta Fidel Castro. I don't know much about Raul, but I love my Fidel. How do you say I love my Fidel?
Quiero.
Quiero.
Quiero a Fidel. Admiro a Fidel. Okay.
Okay, admiro a Fidel.
I have an admiration for him, you mean, maybe?
Okay, admiro a Fidel.
Great admiration. But I was saying that there is a phrase that Fidel said that to define women, I remember he said, women are a revolution into the revolution.
And that's true.
That's true.
I read about Ina Elsa Velasquez Cobier. She was a Cuban Minister of Education.
Yes.
And then you had Her Excellency Maria de los Angelos Flores, Ambassador to UNESCO.
Yes, but we have several more. Yes, you are mentioning only two of them.
Two. It would take forever to mention all.
Yes, but there are several women that have been occupying important positions in Cuba, but in international organizations also. We have a deputy minister at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and several ministers in Cuba, and more than 20 ambassadors, women ambassadors.
20?
More
than 20 female ambassadors?
Yes.
When you think of Cuba, I'm sitting here. Pretend that these are all Antiguans, and you want us to become excited about Cuba. What would you tell us? Pretend that we don't know anything about Cuba, and you're introducing your country to us. What do you want us to know?
Yes, I would like to say, please try to visit my country, to see our realities. Because when you go to different places, unfortunately, the reality is not sad. But in Cuba, we are a very happy country. We work a lot. We are a very sacrificed country because, as you know, we have been for almost 60 years a victim of a very cruel embargo or blockade, as we call it. But in spite of that, we have a lot of creativity. We have a lot of enthusiasm. We are every day we are fighting for what we want. We are supporting women of other countries. But Cuba is not only dance and sing and everything that normally shown. We are very good workers and we have a very strict compromise with the world, with the objective of the United Nations, with cooperation, South-South cooperation. So we are all the time doing the best for peace in the world, for contribution in all places. So Cuba is very beautiful. We have very nice beaches, but it's not all about that. We are working every day.
Las playas bonitas.
Yes, we have very beautiful playas, like Antigua and Barbuda.
Sí.
Yes, yes, of course.
Well, I have heard so much about Cuba from this little discussion between us, and it's already piquing my interest to visit Cuba. As a matter of fact, my colleagues from across the region, they're planning a trip to Cuba in November, so I might be visiting Cuba in November. Want to thank you very much for staying with us on the Paula Show. Tonight it's about the diplomatic relationship between Cuba and Antigua. We have some dancing on set, we have some singing on set. We're exposing you to the Cuban culture tonight, and you're going to love it. Stay with us, please. Today is a very special day for this young lady. It's her birthday. It's her cumpleaños. So, my friend, take it away.
Cumpleaños feliz, cumpleaños feliz, cumpleaños feliz, happy birthday.
Ahí la con más ritmo, ¿verdad? Happy birthday to you.
Baila.
Happy birthday,
Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Gracias.
Thank you very much. That was really, really nice. Let's talk a little bit about your career. You've been in the diplomatic service for 33 years?
Yes,
And loving it.
yes, I love it.
You've lived all across the globe. Angola, in Africa.
I started for Angola.
Disarmament?
Oh, well, I started 2 years in Angola from 86 to 88. After that, I went to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs again. And after 2 or 3 months, I was in the UN Disarmament Fellowship Program, the fellowship program of the United Nations for 6 months, and I became expert on disarmament and international security.
What does that entail? What does that mean?
It means that you are expert in different treaties of the United Nations. For instance, I was dealing with the Chemical Weapons Convention, Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, Landmines Convention, the protocol for verification of the Convention of Biological Weapons. So I've been dealing with disarmament, not armament, disarmament.
Disarmament.
Yes. I was in the Cuban embassy representing our country in these bodies.
Yes. And then after Angola, you went to Europe.
After Angola, I was in Cuba, and after that, 4 years in Geneva, in the Conference on Disarmament. Yes. After that, I went to Cuba again, 5 years in Berlin, as second of our embassy. I went to Cuba again, because normally we have to go back to Cuba after.
Okay, and then you're reassigned.
Yes, you are reassigned. You have to wait 2 or 3 years at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I later went to Norway, this Nordic country, for 4 years as ambassador. And I went to Havana, and now for the first time in the Caribbean region.
Oh, we're so happy that she's in Antigua. Clap for her. But want to hear all the excitement about these various países. You were moving around a bit.
With my family.
With a family?
Yes.
You were married then?
I'm married. My husband is a medical doctor who
Is
is
he
here
here
with me.
tonight?
I think so.
Where is the husband?
Alejandro,
Let me get a shot of
levántate.
the husband.
Levántate.
Where's... Yeah. So he traveled around with you.
Yes, we can go. As diplomatic, we can go with our families.
But the different languages, the language barriers, wasn't that a problem?
No, that's not a problem because with English, you can work. But each time Spanish is more important all over the world. So if you, in Norway, you can speak Spanish at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they all speak your language. Of
And
course,
in Switzerland as well?
in
And
Switzerland,
Germany?
yes,
And
but
Angola?
yes, but English is very important to work. But
Right.
in Switzerland, in Geneva, we spoke French. Because you know, Switzerland, they speak
Yes.
German, French, and Italian, because
See.
they are divided
Yeah.
in 3 regions.
So how many languages do you speak, Ambassador?
I can speak 3 or 4, but mainly English, because I'm not been practicing the other ones.
Oh. But when you were in Angola, that's mostly French, right?
I speak Portuguese. That's very beautiful language, but very similar to Spanish.
I was traveling to Paraguay por una reunión.
Yes.
Entonces, I passed through. This is where it gets difficult. I switch between the languages, so stay with me. Passed through Brazil.
Oh,
I was at the airport and I'm talking Spanish to the people, you know, Spanish, and asking them information in Spanish. Ain't nobody bothering with me. And then eventually I said, my Spanish must be really bad. Then I went to the cafe and I realized I'm not seeing huevos for eggs and then I said, Paula, it's Portuguese. They don't understand what you're saying. So all along, I thought that my Spanish was bad, but I wasn't speaking Portuguese. I was speaking Spanish, and they didn't understand. And they didn't care to understand. And the thing that bothered me, they're so close to Spanish-speaking countries,
Yes.
but they insist on holding on to their Portuguese.
yes, but in fact, they are both Romance languages. They are very similar. But of course, you need practice, and the pronunciation is very complicated for
Yeah.
Spanish-speaking person. That's why you do not understand at the beginning. But after 1 month, you can speak Portuñol.
So, Portuñol?
Portuñol is that kind of language that you speak when you mix Spanish and Portuguese.
Oh, it's like us Spanglish.
Spanglish. that's what.
You know, add the O, add the
Yeah.
A, and you get Spanglish.
Spanglish is also.
Yeah. The children, they speak
I
several
have,
languages.
Yes,
as
I
well?
have 2 daughters, one of 27 and the other one of 17. The second one is here with me. She speaks several languages because of the countries where we have been working.
Very
There's,
good.
Spanish, of course, English, German, and Norwegian.
Wow, that's one marketable girl. So
Yeah.
learning several languages,
Yes.
that's a plus for working in the diplomatic corps.
Yes, that's very important if you are interested in being a diplomatic. But in her case, she is not interested in that. She
Yeah.
would like to be dentist or a lawyer. I don't know, because I think she hasn't decided yet.
She hasn't decided as yet. I want to work at the United Nations. It is my dream to work at the United Nations. I learned Italian, spoke Italian fluently, and I lost it all. Just for a few words. They told me I should have gotten an Italian husband instead of an English husband, and then I wouldn't lose the language.
Yes.
So now I'm desperately holding on to my Spanish. I don't want to lose it. So I have been saying to my professor, Senor Alem, I just need to live someplace where Spanish is spoken exclusively for just 6 months, and I should be fine.
Yes. Well, my recommendation is to go to Cuba, to live with a Cuban family without speaking in English, and in 6 months you will be back speaking perfect Spanish,
But
I'm sure.
But the family would also have to accommodate my husband. Because I can't leave my husband for 6 months. Imagine this conversation. Darling, we're going to Cuba for 6 months. So you won't be able to work. You won't be able to do anything but keep me company while I learn Spanish.
Yes,
I'm not sure he's going to be excited about that. I think he'll say, you go, I'll stay here,
Yeah.
come back and visit me from
Yes.
time to time. So you enjoy working as a diplomat?
I've been my whole life working in that. I love this.
That's what you wanted to do from a young age?
Well, at the beginning, when I was finishing my secondary studies, I was thinking about being a lawyer. And my mother said I was good for that because I was complaining all the time and defending my colleagues. But just at the beginning, I knew there was a school for diplomats, and I applied. And after several, because you have to pass some examinations,
Yes,
I
yes.
was approved. And I think it was the right decision because now I'm about to go to retire in some years.
Seriously?
Yes, of course. I'm not going to say you how many years I'm
But today's
today.
your birthday.
No.
We'd love to know. Tell us, how old are you?
I'm 57 today.
Well, you're not retiring anytime soon. You
At
have 10 more years to
according
go.
to the Cuban laws, with 60, you can go and retire. So I'm thinking about my grandson and my family. But nobody knows, you see.
Well, no, everybody knows. But then one last question in this segment. Tell me like a milestone of your career, something that you were able to accomplish as a diplomat that you can share with us.
Yes, you see, I'm very proud of being living in a moment in which there were several important leaders of the world. I'm very proud of meeting Fidel several times. I met Nelson Mandela also. Yes,
Did you meet Chavez?
several times.
Chavez was my boy. I love Chavez.
Yes, several. Chavez was, we met several
Dynamic.
times in meetings in Havana. When he was in different summits, we used to work with his delegation. He was very, very, very dynamic, enthusiastic. Yes. I'm very proud of living in that moment with after the triumph of the Cuban Revolution. And of course, I'm very happy of knowing the Caribbean Antigua and Barbuda.
Oh, we're happy to know you as well.
Yes, it's a very
We're
important
honored.
place. It is very important place when to each place you go, you find solidarity. To every place you go and you say, I'm from Cuba, everybody loves Cuba.
Yeah.
There is a lot of sympathies for our country, for our leaders. And what else can you wait or would you like to have if you are a diplomat, if you are a revolutionary like I am? When you talk to me about Fidel, about Raúl, about Chavez, Che Guevara, I'm so happy.
I am telling you, I loved Fidel. I loved Chavez. You know why? Because they dared to be courageous. They dared to be courageous at a time when other persons thought that they were troublemakers. But they weren't troublemakers. They stood for principle. And if more persons in this world, in this era, would be willing to make the necessary sacrifices to accomplish your goals, accomplish your dreams, and make sure you always stand on principle, this world would be a better place. And I have taken away some key messages from those two gentlemen to institute in my life to get me to the place where I want to be. I want to be a strong, powerful, global leader. Yes, I'm female. Yes, I'm black, but it's possible. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show. April, we'll be celebrating 25 years of diplomatic relations between Cuba and Antigua. Wow, quarter of a century.
Quarter of a century.
That's a huge one.
Yes.
Economic and financial embargoes were placed on Cuba for decades by the United States,
Yes,
yet
ma'am.
still you rise.
That's still in force, and it's been tightened by the president of the United States, Trump. He has been, during the recent weeks, adopting new measures trying to suffocate the Cuban revolution, the Cuban economy. So instead of being in a better position, we are facing more difficulties because of this blockade.
But in spite of your challenges, you're contributing to the development of the Caribbean, and in this case, Antigua and Barbuda.
Yes, this is a compromise we have with the Caribbean region, with the Caribbean leaders. We are working in the framework of CARICOM. That was quite,
Yes.
former President Raúl was here
In December.
December
Yes.
2017.
That was a huge occasion.
Yes, it was very important for
Yes.
us and for the region also. And we have reiterated our compromise to continue with this cooperation with the Caribbean region, with in this case with Antigua and Barbuda, in spite of the limitations we are facing.
There are hundreds of students who would have benefited from studying Cuba, veterinarians and doctors and
nurses.
radiologists and
Yes.
teachers and engineers, and the list goes on and on and on. And recently I'm still hearing that you're offering scholarships.
Yes, 1 week ago we presented to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs again the possibilities of studying in Cuba for 8 doctors, 3 nurses, and 2 specialists in PhD. For people who have been studying in Cuba, they have the possibility of a postgraduate course of 2 years.
That's a huge effort. You need to clap on that.
Yeah.
And then there are health professionals as well working here in Antigua and Barbuda, Cuban health professionals.
Yes, in this moment we have about 57 members of what we call medical brigade. As you know, many of them are present here today, and they even are going to perform for us because they are doctors, technicians,
The doctors are going to
but
dance
they
us
are dancers and singers, very good in
Nice.
everything. Yes.
Nice. And you have some engineers as well working with the Public Works Department.
Yes, we have some engineers working with APUA in electricity and with water, and also with public work. There are about 20 engineers, architects, and technicians working in repairing motors, roads, and in different disciplines of that job. So we are very proud of that, and we are cooperating and giving technical assistance to Antigua and Barbuda. We have 4 medical personnel in Barbuda also.
I was just about to say, but I'm hearing quite a lot about your cooperation with Antigua. But what are you doing in Barbuda? So there are 4.
4, 2 doctors
medical
and 2
team.
nurses in Barbuda.
What
They-
about the engineers? Not as
No,
yet.
not in this moment, but of course we are always open for more cooperation.
So when the scholarships are offered, Barbudan students can as well.
Yes, of course, we send the information to the government, and I have seen that information in the webpage of the Prime Minister, and yes, it's circulating in the networks. I have seen that information, but it is the government of Antigua and Barbuda, the one responsible for selecting. There is a process of selecting the students, and after that we will receive all the information, and of course they should be in Cuba about August, more or less.
August of this year. On behalf of the government of Cuba, what are the future plans to strengthen ties, diplomatic ties with Antigua and Barbuda?
Yes, you see, one of our main objective is to preserve the diplomatic relations we have, to increase that ties that are always in very good conditions. They are positive relation with this government based, as you said, and it's very important, in principles.
Yes.
In principles and in cooperation. We are working in the context of CARICOM, in the context of the organization of a Caribbean state that,
Eastern
by the
Caribbean
way,
state.
there is a summit today in Nicaragua, and Antigua and Barbuda, as member of this region, is participating. And there are different bodies in which we all participate, and Antigua, Cuba, and all Latin American and Caribbean countries declare the region a region of peace in a summit in Cuba in 2014.
And we would like the Caribbean to be maintained as an area of peace. We do not want anyone creating division in our Caribbean peace. We want it to be
Yes.
left alone.
And that is one of the objectives we have here, is to continue working in keeping Latin America and the Caribbean region as a zone of peace. So we will continue cooperation and with these excellent diplomatic ties we have
Yes.
in this moment.
And what about your culture? How have you been helping us in Antigua to appreciate your culture? Your cooking, your dancing, your
Yes.
singing.
Yes. You see, this is one of the fields in which I think there is a potential. It is one of the fields in which I think we can do more. So the Ministry of Culture, Honorable Matthew, was in Cuba in December, I think, and we are trying to do something together. We would like to participate in your famous carnival. And a group of Antiguans and Barbudan students are going to the Festival of the Caribbean region in Santiago de Cuba in July.
Nice.
So I hope in the near future we can make or have some concrete steps in culture and sport also. Because we think we
Baseball?
can... Baseball, maybe cycling, and there are
Do you
different...
play soccer in Cuba?
No, normally no. I don't
And
know
no
if there
cricket
is a
either?
team. No cricket, baseball is...
Baseball.
Baseball, boxing.
Well, we will have to introduce you to our sports, and you will introduce us to your sports.
That's fantastic.
That,
yes.
that should be fine.
Yes. But we have to continue working in that direction, because I think that Cuba has a lot to show to Antigua, but at the same time we have to see your very rich and wonderful culture. So that's something that have to come in the
We'll
coming
combine
months.
the cultures.
We have to combine the
Yes.
culture, because we have a very big influence of the African culture in Cuba, yes.
Still.
And yes, you could see in the dance we will have later the influence of that African rhythms in our dance, in our singing.
I'm supposed to be dancing tonight,
Yes.
so I have to do African rhythms?
Yes, the Cuban culture has the influence of the Spanish and the African countries, so there is a mixture of them.
We'll see what happens.
Okay, let's see.
Coming up in our next segment, celebrations from Cuba in singing and dancing. And I understand that at some point, I will have a dance partner. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Yes.
And gentlemen, it's the segment when we introduce you to Cuban culture. And on set at this time, we'll have our first performance in song, all the way from Cuba. Let's clap for him.
Yeah.
Tú no me alienta el deseo divino de hacerte mía, mas me destruye la incertidumbre que estoy pasando. Es que la niebla cruel de los años mi cuerpo enfría y se me agota ya la paciencia por ti esperando. Y se me agota ya la paciencia por ti esperando. Y a besos yo te levanto al rayar el día. Que mi idilio perdure siempre al llegar la noche. Mas cuando llegue la aurora llena de goces, se fundan en una sola tu alma y la mía. Y a besos yo te levanto al rayar el día. Y que mi idilio perdure siempre al llegar la noche. Mas cuando llegue la aurora llena de goces, se fundan en una sola tu alma y la mía. Tu alma y la mía. Y a besos yo te levanto a rayar el día. Que mi idilio perdure siempre al llegar la noche. Mas cuando llegue la aurora llena de goces, se fundan en una sola tu alma y la mía. Y a besos yo te levanto al rayar el día. Y que mi idilio perdure siempre al llegar la noche. Mas cuando llegue la aurora llena de goces, se fundan en una sola tu alma y la mía. Se fundan en una sola tu alma y la mía.
Y el que sabe está callado.
Nadie sabe más, nadie sabe más. Todo el mundo está de lado, y el que sabe está callado. Nadie sabe más, nadie sabe más. Todo el mundo está de lado, y el que sabe está callado.
Ayer me paró Teresa en el medio de la calle. Me dijo, siéntate ahí, que te voy a dar detalles. Le salió del corazón pedirme que me cuidara, que son muchos malos ojos y que cualquiera dispara.
Nadie sabe más,
¡Pum!
nadie sabe más.
Alguien más roba.
Está de lado, y el que sabe está callado. Nadie sabe más, nadie sabe más. Todo el mundo está de lado, y el que sabe está callado.
Me habló de que había escuchado comentario entre la gente, porque Habana de primera se coló rápidamente, que nadie entiende el porqué de mi sabor elegante y que muchos se disgustan porque yo no soy cantante. Le dije no, tengo miedo y voy camino a la cima. Lo que digan por ahí me levanta la autoestima, pero vale tu consejo y le pedí a mis guías que me limpien el camino para seguir la profecía. Nadie sabe nada, nadie sabe nada.
Fue la primera vez y mirarte bastó, al menos para saber que eras tú lo que andaba buscando como mujer. Fue la segunda vez y tocarte bastó, al menos para saber el misterio, el encanto que escondes sobre tu piel. Y me bastó tan solo una mirada, un gesto tuyo, para dejar a un lado hasta mi orgullo, para poner a tu merced mi corazón, para saber que es tu amor. Porque cuando escucho tu voz, las que el viento me robó, y es que tú eres la mujer de mi vida, la dueña de un sueño de oro, la que me salva y me inspira, al pobre regalo de Dios. Fue la tercera vez y besarte, al menos para saber que sería capaz de morir por besarte otra vez. Y me bastó tan solo una mirada, un gesto tuyo, para dejar a un lado hasta mi orgullo, para poner a tu merced mi corazón, para saber que es tu amor, para saber que es tu amor. Porque cuando escucho tu voz, encuentro las palabras perdidas, las que el canto me adoró. Es que tú eres la mujer de mi vida, la que me sueña de oro, tú la que me salva y me inspira, de Dios. Esta vez me demostró que a la tercera vez no vencida, porque hasta
On 6 April 2019, the people of Cuba and Antigua and Barbuda will celebrate 25 years since diplomatic relations was established between the two nations. We invited Alessandra Cordero Moreno, a Cuban native, to prepare a typical Cuban meal. Off to Epicurean Fine Foods and Pharmacy I went to shop for the food items. They included lettuce, tomatoes, carrots, green plantains, cassavas, chicken, black beans, rice, cooking wine, seasoning, and vegetable oil. The chicken was carefully washed and excess fat and skin were removed. It was cooked over slow heat in a saucepan containing cooking wine, garlic, and a pinch of salt. No water. Simultaneously, we boiled the black beans which we tested at intervals, this to determine if they were sufficiently cooked. When satisfied, we added the rice. This is a balancing act because we want the rice and beans to be firmly cooked together, not mushy. I love salads. The Cuban salad was colorfully attractive with lettuce, tomatoes, carrots, and olives. We questioned the reason for removing the skins from the tomatoes. Generally, local people do not peel tomatoes. Later, we learned that peeled pieces of tomato skins were curled into various shapes to enhance the presentation of the healthy Cuban salad. While our Cuban chef prepared the Spanish meal, Franklin Knowles and DeAndre Samuel made the dessert. Leche y arroz, milk and rice.
We're gonna add the cinnamon and the rice to that and let it boil. When it boils, we reduce the heat and let it cook for 15 to 20 minutes. And then we add the other ingredients. So,
Yes. Sí,
No sé qué es.
In
and we're
English,
gonna
you can call
add
it
cinnamon stick. Let me break it for you.
a glass.
It's a 3
Because
inches, which
it's
is
made
about,
from glass. See,
that's about 3
glass.
inches. So we'll add
Big.
that.
See, but you can say tumbler.
Ah,
Tumbler.
yeah.
We're gonna cover it and let it boil.
You can say a glass of water.
Right? Then when it boils,
May I have a glass of
we
water?
remove the
I
heat,
have.
we will cover and turn on the heat and let it cook for 15 to 20 minutes. Turn it in here. Call for
Oh,
everything.
it's pouring the raisin.
And then you bring it up to a boil and stir it in. When it boils, you reduce the heat for another 10 to 15 minutes and start to simmer. Then you remove the cinnamon and it's ready to serve.
Tostones are flattened and fried green plantains, an African-inspired dish and remnant from the days of slavery on the island. It is time to present our Cuban meal. We are satisfied that everything was cooked according to our expectations. La comida cubana es muy deliciosa. Thank you for staying with us on the Paula Show tonight. It was indeed a rich experience. The Cuban culture, Cuban revolution, Cuban interaction with Antigua and Barbuda, and the Cuban diplomatic relations with Antigua and Barbuda. Congratulations to the governments and people of Cuba and Antigua and Barbuda on the 25th anniversary since diplomatic relations was established. We will continue to strengthen each other by way of our skills, talents, culture, and common objectives. Have a good evening. Goodbye.
The Paula Show is on.